A Russian delegation arrives in Syria. It's the first one from Moscow since the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. President Putin was one of Assad's key allies when he ruled Syria. Assad and his family fled to Russia after his government was toppled in December. Last month, American and Ukrainian diplomats visited Syria's new rulers. And Serbia's prime minister resigns after months of mass demonstrations. It was triggered by the collapse of a train station roof in November. 15 people were killed in the incident. The prime minister was in office for less than a year. Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, Tesla. Together, these tech giants are called the Magnificent Seven. And why are they called magnificent? Not because of their massive valuations or their investments in artificial intelligence. They are called magnificent because of their dominance in the stock market. These 7 stocks account for over 1/3 of the total value of S&P 500. S&P 500 is an index that tracks the top 500 companies in America, and these 7 companies that I just mentioned rule it. They shape the fortunes of the market, and when they stumble, the market trembles. We saw that yesterday. The stock markets were bleeding. $1 trillion were wiped off in a single day, all thanks to a Chinese AI company called Deepseek. We've been telling you about it on this show. Deepseek recently unveiled its AI models, its AI chatbots. And they're making waves the world over, giving American AI giants like ChatGPT and Gemini a run for their money. The Chinese models are cost-effective, just a few $1 million in investments. They were also trained on less advanced chips, yet they're as good as their Western counterparts, and this has left the markets in a frenzy. If you looked at the Magnificent Seven yesterday, you could have mistaken them for a Chinese flag. That's how red they were. The biggest loser? Star chipmaker Nvidia. It had its worst day since the year 2020. Nvidia shares plunged 17% in yesterday's trade. It wiped out $600 billion in market value, $600 billion in just one day. It's the biggest fall in US stock market history. The other tech titans weren't spared either. Alphabet shed $100 billion. Microsoft lost $7 billion. All in all, it was manic Monday for America's tech giants. And the losses spilled over. The world's richest collectively lost $108 billion. Leading this rout was Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia. His fortune took a $20 billion hit. You'd think he wouldn't be a fan of Deepseek, but surprisingly, Huang had a different take. He called it, and I'm quoting, an excellent advancement. And it's easy to see why. Deepseek's AI models were trained using Nvidia chips. They weren't the latest and the greatest, but they were still Nvidia chips. And here's the twist. A cheaper AI model means more AI demand.
Yeah, I think the worry is that they, in theory, were able to do this without Nvidia's latest chips, as well as the model. It's a strong model. But the reality is that it doesn't change the position of U.S. tech, Nvidia, Microsoft, and others relative to AI revolution. And I do believe it's a huge overreaction that we're seeing in stocks on this Deepseek sell-off.
So this does not spell doom for Nvidia, but the same can't be said for OpenAI. That's the maker of ChatGPT. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman praised Deepseek. Let me quote from what he said. Deepseek's R1 is an impressive model, particularly around what they're able to deliver for the price. We will obviously deliver much better models. So Sam Altman says OpenAI can do better, but can they really? Again, look at the numbers. Deepseek trained its models for just $6 million. Compare that to OpenAI. It is burning through $5 billion a year. So the Chinese version comes for a fraction of the cost. Plus, it is free for users, while ChatGPT comes with a hefty price tag. So for consumers, the choice is quite obvious. It is a no-brainer, really. Millions are flocking to Deepseek. making it the highest-rated free app in the United States. But with great fame comes great risk. And Deepseek learned it the hard way yesterday. The app was hit by a cyber attack. It was so bad that the company had to limit registrations. They investigated it for 2 hours and called it a large-scale malicious attack. Deepseek has not given any more information on the attack. The timing, of course, is a bit suspicious, so the internet wasted no time in deciding who is the culprit. They believe the United States did it. But conspiracy theories aside, the rise of Deepseek is a reminder. Innovation does not always have to come with $1 billion price tag. Yes, the Magnificent Seven still dominate the market, but they're not invincible. Yesterday's sell-off was a sign of things to come, perhaps, that the next big revolution may not come from Silicon Valley. So the tech race is heating up. It's not just a battle for AI supremacy, it's a battle to control the future. Yes, tech companies will be on the front lines, but they won't be there alone, because as the race intensifies, politicians will step in. We are seeing that in the US already. Donald Trump has commented on the Deepseek breakthrough. He says it should be a wake-up call for Silicon Valley.
The release of Deepseek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said.
So how will America respond? Their strategy has been two-pronged so far. The first is to choke the chip supply. You need advanced chips to make AI platforms. Most of them are made by Nvidia. In fact, even Deepseek, as we just told you, was trained using Nvidia chips. So the US has cut off this supply. They have barred the sale of advanced chips to China. That's the first strategy. The second strategy is investing at home. Joe Biden announced billions of dollars for the chip industry, and Donald Trump is building on that. He recently unveiled a massive private AI venture. It is worth $500 billion. The US will be hoping to replicate the space race. If you remember, they had a horrible start. The Soviet Union launched the first satellite. They also put the first man in space, but after that, it was one-way traffic. Not only did the US overcome the Soviet lead, they comprehensively won the space race. How did they manage to do that? Because space became a national mission. Private companies, government agencies, even ordinary people bought into it. That's the thing about American companies, in fact. They claim to be globalized institutions, but their loyalty clearly lies with the United States. Just look at Google. They plan to update their maps in the coming days. Do you know why? It is to rename the Gulf of Mexico. This is a water body shared by the US, Mexico, and Cuba. For centuries, it's been called the Gulf of Mexico, but President Donald Trump has renamed it. He's calling it the Gulf of America. The change has not been reflected in official documents yet. Once it is, Google Maps will be updated. Users in the US will see the water body as Gulf of America. What about those outside the US? They will see both names. Now, this is part of a broader trend, a marriage of convenience between big tech and the US government. And the benefits are quite clear. Big tech can influence US policy at home. They can also utilize America's outsized role in world affairs. For example, fines. Europe has accused big tech firms of antitrust violations. They've also fined the likes of Apple and Google. Collectively, these fines are worth $15 billion. President Trump says this is unfair, that foreign countries should not be fining US firms. He's also threatened tariffs in retaliation. So the benefit for these technology companies is quite clear. And what's in it for the US government? Well, they get access to user data, and they do. Also contracts with the military and leverage over rivals and allies. After all, big tech companies operate practically everywhere, so the success of China's Deepseek is a wake-up call. Not just for Silicon Valley, but for every country in the world. Tech sovereignty should be their ultimate goal. If you own the technology, you can regulate it. You can ensure it's free and fair. If you don't own it, you're just a spectator. You may have seen big tech CEOs dragged up to US Congress. Do you think that will happen anywhere else in the world? Do you think a Mark Zuckerberg will testify in Europe or India? He won't, because he's protected by the US government. With artificial intelligence, we're seeing the same thing. American companies and the US government are mobilizing to monopolize yet another industry. The question is, what can the rest of us do? What should countries like India do? For starters, Deepseek is an encouraging sign. It is not a multi-billion-dollar project. It was built on a very small budget. Until now, that was a big worry for countries like India. They were wary of splurging on AI training. But if it can be done for cheap, why not? Although there is a problem. Does India want an AI model like Deepseek? There are no indications from the government so far. Meanwhile, the private sector is split on this question. Infosys chairman Nandan Nilekani weighed in recently. He says India should not invest in large AI models. Instead, it should focus on practical applications of artificial intelligence. But homegrown AI bosses disagree. They say large models are necessary. This lack of clarity will hurt India's AI campaign. We need a national mission to create sovereign tech assets. We couldn't do that with past technologies, with the internet, with social media, with 4G and 5G, or even with smartphones for that matter. If we miss this AI bus, there could be a repeat. Yesterday, we told you about the Trump-Modi phone call. Today, we have more details. Prime Minister Narendra Modi could visit the United States of America next month. Says who? President Donald Trump himself. He says he will host Modi at the White House in February. Now, if confirmed, this would be significant. Incoming US presidents usually host allies first, like the leaders of Israel or the UK. Indian prime ministers visit much later. In Trump's first term, he hosted Prime Minister Modi in late June. His successor, Joe Biden, hosted Modi in September. This time, it could happen a lot faster. Let's see if either side announces a date. Even if they don't, the meeting could happen anyway because both Modi and Trump are traveling to Paris next month. They will attend an AI summit there. So chances are they will meet on the sidelines. Beyond this, what did Modi and Trump discuss? Well, the Indian Prime Minister congratulated Donald Trump on his election win. They also discussed global hotspots like Ukraine, Gaza, and the Indo-Pacific. Trump urged India to buy more American-made weapons. He also talked about a fair trading equation. And that last one is quite important because Trump believes that India is a tariff abuser. Hours after speaking to Prime Minister Modi, he threatened New Delhi with tariffs.
Put tariffs on outside countries and outside people that really mean us harm. They want to, well, they mean us harm, but they basically want to make their country good. Look at what others do. China's a tremendous tariff maker, and India and Brazil and so many countries. And so we're not going to let that happen any longer because we're going to put America first. Always put America first. That's what's going to happen.
There are two major irritants here. The first is immigration. The second is tariffs. India is showing flexibility on both these issues. On immigration, New Delhi has made its position clear. If the migrants are illegal, we will take them back. President Trump seems confident about that. He was asked whether India would take back its illegal migrants, and he said Prime Minister Modi would do the right thing. On tariffs, India has less wiggle room. Reports say New Delhi is planning to buy more American products like whiskey, steel, and oil. The hope is to appease Donald Trump. But what if it doesn't work? Then the impact will be consequential because the US is India's top export market. We also have a trade surplus with them, meaning we sell more goods to America than we buy. This surplus is around $35 billion. If Trump taxes this trade, it will hurt Indian exports. So how can India protect itself? There are two things to watch out for. The first is the upcoming budget. There are murmurs of possible tariff cuts on US imports. like on pork and motorcycles. If they happen, Prime Minister Modi can send a signal to President Trump, a signal that India is willing to engage. The second thing to watch out for is the meeting itself. Can Trump and Modi strike a trade deal? Can Modi get some concessions from Trump? Maybe a way to sidestep the tariffs. This could offer India some much-needed breathing room. Of course, it won't happen in one meeting, but we should look out for signals. The best option is to see this as an opportunity, a chance to rationalize our tariffs, also a chance to expand our export base. You see, right now, there is a dependence on America. Nearly 18% of India's exports end up in the US. It's come down from the peak of 22% in the year 2000, but it's still quite high. In some sectors like IT, it's as high as 80%. So naturally, US tariffs can hurt us, which is why it's important to diversify, to export to more countries and regions. And India has been negotiating a lot of free trade deals, but most of them are still stuck, including the ones with the UK and the European Union. They're clearly interested in pursuing it, so New Delhi must capitalize on their desperation. We need to export to more regions. We need to diversify our trade. If not, a Trumpian threat will shake things up. So now is the time for India to be proactive, to stave off Trump's threats on one side and to insulate India's economy on the other. Donald Trump is deporting undocumented immigrants, left, right and center, and he's quite proud of it. This was a major promise during his election campaign, and he's quite happy to fulfill it.
We're tracking down the illegal alien criminals. We're detaining them, and we are throwing them the hell out of our country. We have no apologies, and we're moving forward very fast. They're very dangerous people.
Raids are taking place all over the United States. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, is picking up undocumented immigrants. They have arrested people in all corners of the United States, from Maryland to Georgia, from Colorado to sanctuary cities like Chicago. They even had raids in Puerto Rico, which is not even a state. It's an island in the Caribbean, a de facto U.S. colony, but U.S. authorities conducted raids there as well. Hundreds of people are being arrested every day. More than 950 were arrested on Sunday alone. These were undocumented immigrants. After arrest, they have to get processed, and then they'll be put on a flight and deported, sent back to the country of their country of origin. The U.S. military has been called in to help. They are assisting with the deportations. Undocumented immigrants are being loaded up on military transport aircraft and flown to their country of origin, or at least one country so far, which is Guatemala. Guatemala is a nation in Central America. It is home to about 18 million people, and it shares a border with Mexico. Guatemala is welcoming the U.S. military planes carrying back undocumented migrants from the country. Their vice president, Karen Herrera, was at the airport herself. She greeted the first batch of deported migrants in person. This was on Friday. The US sent 3 military planes then. They sent another one yesterday. So that's 4 round trips for the C-17 Globemaster III. This is a large military transport plane capable of transporting about 200 people in one go. The U.S. Department of Defense shared some footage yesterday of the first deportation flights to Guatemala being loaded up. The migrants can be seen in chains, handcuffed, feet tied up, chains around their torsos as well. It seems that they're being treated like hardened criminals. President Trump did say that they were dangerous, but some of the visuals do seem odd. There are clearly some children there among the migrants. Was it really necessary to parade them around in chains? It seems excessive. When the migrants arrived in Guatemala, some of them remained in handcuffs. These were the criminals facing charges in their home country, but most were set free. They were given temporary IDs and welcomed with open arms. So clearly most of them were not dangerous criminals, but they still immigrated to the US illegally, so Trump has no qualms about kicking them out. And that is the reality facing everyone in the US illegally right now. Criminal or not, they're all set to be deported, and President Trump won't be taking no for an answer.
And as you saw yesterday, we've made it clear to every country that they will be taking back our people that we're sending out, the criminals, that the illegal aliens coming from their countries. We're taking them back, and they're going to take them back fast. And if they don't, they'll pay a very high economic price, and we're going to immediately install massive tariffs.
Trump was talking about the showdown with Colombia. We told you about this yesterday. Colombia refused to accept US military deportation planes, so Trump threatened them with tariffs. Eventually, Colombia backed down. Colombia still won't take US military planes. It is sending its own aircraft instead. It says it wants to bring back its citizens with quote-unquote dignity. Similar objections have been raised by Brazil and Mexico. They are also opposed to US military deportation flights and the poor treatment given to their citizens. Brazil has in fact summoned the US envoy in their country to explain the reports of mistreatment. The protest, however, seems to be about the optics, not the deportation itself. Both countries are still taking back migrants, just via civilian flights instead. Mexico is taking back migrants at the border as well. So far, about 4,000 people have been deported to Mexico, and this number is expected to keep increasing. Sunday's standoff with Colombia was a message. Trump will use all means at his disposal to deport migrants, even if it hurts the economy of the United States and destroys bilateral relations. Donald Trump just wants to kick migrants out. Most countries understand this now, even rivals like China. Yesterday, Beijing said it was willing to take back illegal migrants. It said it was, and I'm quoting, willing to repatriate confirmed Chinese nationals. The US Department of Homeland Security has faced resistance in the past, but yesterday's message could signal better cooperation. All of this points to one thing. Trump's mass deportation plan is well and truly underway. Our next story is about Denmark. The European nation is scrambling, not because of enemy threats, but because of threats from a supposed ally, US President Donald Trump. Trump wants Greenland. It's an autonomous Danish territory, so Trump wants to buy it from Denmark, but the Danes do not want to sell it. They've been quite clear about this. Trump does not care, though. He says that the US will definitely get Greenland. Those are the words that he used, and this seems to have caused chaos in Copenhagen. Denmark announced a new security plan yesterday, a new $2 billion deal for Arctic security. It involves new ships, drones, and satellite surveillance. But is it really about the Arctic? Or is it about deterring Donald Trump from going after Greenland? Our next report has the details.
Denmark has announced a new security spending package. It's worth 14.6 billion Danish kroner, which comes up to a little over 2 billion USD. Copenhagen says that the new package is for Arctic security. Denmark is one of the 8 members of the Arctic Council. It's an intergovernmental forum for countries with land inside the Arctic Circle. But Denmark doesn't actually have land within the Arctic Circle. Its only claim to representation there is an autonomous territory, Greenland. Denmark's new security package heavily involves Greenland. It's a partnership between Denmark, Greenland and another autonomous territory, the Faroe Islands. The message is clear. Denmark wants the world to know that it still holds Greenland and it's ready to defend it. Now, ordinarily, this message would have been for Western rivals like Russia and China. But these days, Denmark has a new headache from within the Western coalition. The problem is their big brother, the United States, or rather, the new US President, Donald Trump. Trump has been quite clear about his ambitions.
We need Greenland for national security purposes.
He seeks to take control of Greenland. Ideally, he would like to buy it from Denmark, but Trump has also refused to rule out a military intervention. Denmark has been trying to dissuade Trump. It has told him multiple times that Greenland isn't for sale. Greenland itself has said this, but Trump doesn't care. He keeps bringing up the issue, telling reporters that controlling Greenland is a matter of security. Not just American security, but for the freedom of the world. Trump said this again over the weekend.
But I do believe Greenland will get, because it really has to do with freedom of the world, not just freedom of, it has nothing to do with the United States other than we're the one that can provide the freedom. They can't. They can't. I mean, they put 2 dog sleds there 2 weeks ago. They thought that was protection.
Trump mocked the Danes for putting dog sleds in Greenland, and he has a point. Dog sleds in 2025? Does anyone really believe that will deter a Chinese or Russian invasion? It seems Copenhagen got the memo. So yesterday, it announced the new Arctic security package, and the new package seems ordinary at first glance. Denmark announced 3 new Arctic ships, long-range drones, and increased satellite surveillance. Again, not enough to deter an invasion from a hostile force. But it did get a positive reaction from Greenlandic authorities. Greenland's foreign minister said, "I'm pleased that with this partial agreement, we have taken the first step towards strengthening security in and around Greenland." So the Danes have got the Greenlanders on board. However, one crucial aspect of defense spending was not discussed, something that could actually be a game changer. Denmark controls an airstrip in Greenland in the island's southwest, and Copenhagen is planning to upgrade it. This would allow Denmark to deploy F-35 stealth fighters from the base. F-35s aren't dog sleds, so no one is going to dismiss them as a joke. This means Denmark is set to strengthen its hold on Greenland. It will have real means for Arctic security and a real deterrent to expansionism, whether Russian, Chinese, or even American.
The Silicon Valley was meant to be a cradle of innovation, but it's starting to resemble a gladiatorial arena where billionaires clash and collaboration takes a backseat. The latest in the ring are Elon Musk and Bill Gates. They did not always see eye to eye, but this time their rivalry is out in the open. In a recent interview, Bill Gates slammed Elon Musk. What for? For embracing far-right politicians abroad.
It's really insane that he can destabilize the political situations in countries. I think in the US, foreigners aren't allowed to give money. Other countries maybe should adopt safeguards to make sure super-rich foreigners aren't distorting their elections.
So clearly, Bill Gates is not holding back, and he does have a point. Musk is interfering in elections across the world, from Germany to the United Kingdom, backing far-right parties and calling for a change in government. According to Bill Gates, that is overreach.
It's difficult to understand why someone who has a car factory in both China and in Germany, whose rocket business is ultra-dependent on relationships with sovereign nations, and who is busy cutting $2 trillion in U.S. government expenses and running 5 companies, is obsessing about this grooming story in the UK.
And what is Musk's response? Well, last we checked, he hadn't stirred up a tweet storm. Maybe he's asleep, or perhaps he's actually working. But if his record is anything to go by, Musk will not let this criticism slide. Just this month, he accused Bill Gates of meddling in European politics. And back in 2022, Musk said that Gates was shorting Tesla. When you short a stock, you basically borrow shares from a broker and then sell them in the hope that the stock price will fall. So shorting is essentially betting against a stock. Now, Musk said that Gates was shorting Tesla. It sparked an avalanche of tweets. Safe to say the two do not get along. And let's not pretend that these feuds do not serve a purpose. Gates is trying to play the benevolent dad of tech, shaking his head at Musk's antics. Meanwhile, Elon Musk doubles down on his bad boy genius persona. It plays well with their fan bases, and it's great for their businesses. Because at the end of the day, who doesn't love a bit of drama? And the billionaires definitely thrive on it. Just last week, Musk was taking pot shots at OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. It started as a casual comment and spiraled into a full-blown social media showdown. Altman tried to extend the olive branch. Musk rebuffed him. Before that, in 2023, it was Elon Musk versus Mark Zuckerberg. And this wasn't just a battle of tweets or posts. This time, it was about the real punch. Zuckerberg proposed a cage fight. Musk agreed. 2 adult men, billionaires to boot, fighting it out. The world couldn't wait for this edition of the Fight Club, but it never took place. For all their saber-rattling, they never got around to throwing punches. And you may know this. The first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about it. But not in this billion-dollar Fight Club. Here, all they do is talk. And most battles feature Elon Musk. So is there any billionaire that he gets along with? It's not much of a list, but of late he's been quite chummy with Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. Their exchanges have been playful. The vibes seem positive, but knowing Musk, it's only a matter of time before this too turns into another headline-grabbing feud. Because in the billionaire world, alliances are as fleeting as tweets. And these open spats aren't just ego battles, they're spectacles that shape public perception. They reinforce brand loyalty, and more often than not, they boost the bottom line. It's all part of a carefully curated performance. The only constant in this story is the drama.
शाम से इस जगह पर रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन हो रहा है। बुराड़ी में कल रात तकरीबन 7 बजे एक 4 मंजिला इमारत गिर गई और उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक राहत और बचाव का काम चल रहा है। इस वक्त सीधी तस्वीरें मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ। ये जो तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं, ये टॉप एंगल शॉट्स हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर कि किस तरीके से ये पूरी बिल्डिंग जो है वो ढह गई। और आप फिलहाल देख सकते हैं कि तकरीबन 4 से 5 जेसीबी है जिनकी मदद से मलबे को हटाने का काम यहाँ पर किया जा रहा है। और साथ ही साथ आप देखेंगे दूसरी तरफ एनडीआरएफ के जो लोग हैं वो लोग हाथ से भी मलबे को हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। यहाँ से तकरीबन 13 लोगों को रेस्क्यू कर लिया गया है और जिसमें से बताया जा रहा है कि 2 लोगों की मौत भी हो गई है। और ऐसे में फिलहाल जो यहाँ पर काम चल रहा है वो मलबे को हटाकर क्या कोई और लोग नीचे दबे हो सकते हैं उनकी खोजबीन को लेकर चल रहा है। और फिलहाल 13 लोगों का रेस्क्यू किया गया है। उसके बाद से कोई रेस्क्यू फिलहाल होता हुआ नजर नहीं आया है, लेकिन अब ये मलबा हटाने के बाद ये देखा जाएगा कि कोई इसके अंदर तो नहीं फंसा हुआ है। अब तक 2 लोगों की मौत की खबर यहां से आ रही।
करोगे क्या ऊपर से आ गए? हाँ
2 लोगों की डेथ हो गई तो उसको अपडेटेड कर दो।
ऑफिशियली नहीं हुआ ना
और उन्होंने कुछ बोल ही पाए थे बिल्डिंग है तुरंत हम भागे हम सीधा।
देखिए अभी चुनाव का माहौल है, विधायक संजीव
There's a new item on President Donald Trump's wish list, an Iron Dome for America. He signed an executive order on Monday. It directs the US military to create a missile shield. Against what? Most kinds of aerial weapons, even hypersonic and ballistic missiles. We've seen how effective the Iron Dome is in Israel. It has protected the country for years. But this system, is this practical for a bigger country like the United States? And how much would it cost? Our next report tells you.
Remember Donald Trump's slogan from 2016?
We're going to build a wall. It's going to be built.
Well, this time, he doesn't want a wall. He wants a shield. A shield of missiles to protect American skies. Or, as he put it, an Iron Dome.
He's what we need to immediately begin the construction of a state-of-the-art Iron Dome missile defense shield, which will be able to protect Americans. You know, we protect other countries, but we don't protect ourselves. And
Trump has already signed the executive order. The Pentagon has 60 days to come up with a plan. The goal? To protect America from next-generation strategic weapons, even your ballistic and hypersonic missiles. The idea isn't new. Ronald Reagan first invested in this plan. He tried to protect the US from a ballistic missile strike. This was way back in 1983.
Will soon go forward.
Since then, the US has invested $415 billion on this project, and the result? No success. Even today, it's almost impossible to shoot down a ballistic missile. They are relatively small, they hurtle down from the edge of space, and they travel at many times the speed of sound. You cannot shoot them down from Earth. Your best bet is missiles stored in space. And that is what Trump wants. He wants a system that can shoot down missiles from space, a technology that doesn't exist today. So ballistic missiles are out of the picture. What about smaller rockets? Israel's Iron Dome makes short work of these rockets, so why not America? Experts say it's simply not practical. The US is the third largest country in the world. Its size is 9.8 million square kilometers, and Israel just 20,000 square kilometers. So the US is 490 times bigger than Israel. It would need more than 24,000 iron domes to defend itself. The cost? Around $2.5 trillion, which is several times higher than the US military budget. And it's not just about the money. Israel and the US face different kinds of threats. Israel handles rockets from Gaza and Lebanon, slower short-range weapons, but the US? Their biggest threat are ballistic missiles from other continents, from countries like China, Russia or North Korea. Nobody is lobbing rockets at the US from Mexico or Canada. Yet this Iron Dome obsession remains. Even Europe is toying with the idea. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested it recently. He said that Europe should have its own Iron Dome.
Europe needs its own version of the Iron Dome, something that can deal with any kind of threat. We can't rely on goodwill from a few capitals when it comes to Europe's security.
We get the allure. It's reassuring to hear about a shield of missiles, to see projectiles being shot from the sky. But you cannot copy-paste defense strategies. What works for Israel will not work for the US. What works for the US will not work for India. So Trump's Iron Dome business doesn't sound like a practical strategy. Though the defense contractors will be licking their lips.
Now let's talk about Pope Francis. He has a lot going on. The Catholic Church is battling a crisis of faith, so the Pope is trying to restore numbers. He's pushing to modernize the Church with world tours, blessings for same-sex couples, and discussions on AI and climate change. But for every 2 steps the Pope takes, the Church seems to take 1 back. Because despite years of reform, every once in a while a new scandal erupts. The most recent one comes from the Peruvian Church. An investigation has uncovered sexual abuses and financial mismanagement by its top members. It is the same old story, but this time Pope Francis is handling it differently. He is dissolving the church based in Peru. So what is behind this remarkable step? How unusual is it? And what does it mean for the church? Here's a report.
Dissolution is a charged word among the Catholics. It refers to the suppression of a religious movement recognized by the Church. It's a popular word, but as an actionable item, it's almost unheard of. It is a fate that no Jesuit religious order wants to meet. But that's exactly what has happened to a Peruvian-based Catholic movement, the Sodalithum of Christian Life. It was founded in 1971. It has about 20,000 members and it is an enormously influential Catholic society in South America. But now it's being dissolved. In a remarkable and highly unusual step, Pope Francis is dissolving the Peruvian Catholic group and its top members are being definitively expelled. Why? Take a wild guess. Because of a sex abuse scandal. and it has been more than a decade in the making. In 2011, former members of the group filed a complaint with the Lima Archdiocese. They talked about abuses by its founder, by this man, Luis Figari. This too was swept under the carpet. Neither the local church nor the Holy See took action, but 4 years later, they were forced to act. In 2015, this book was released. It was written by one of Figari's victims and a journalist, and it laid bare in great detail the twisted practices that were conducted at the Soda Lithium. So the group was pushed to commission an investigation. Its report came out in 2017 and uncovered more details. Apparently, Figari sodomized his recruits. He also subjected them to regular humiliation through psychological abuses. These explosive findings led to an attempt at reform, and unsurprisingly, that didn't work. So finally, Pope Francis sent Vatican investigators to Peru, and they uncovered yet again sadistic sect-like abuses of power. Sexual abuses, of course, but also financial mismanagement by leaders while administering church money. So finally, after years of back and forth, the Pope has taken a decisive call and dissolved the Catholic group in Peru. This is a big step for the Church in the right direction, but it's also worth remembering that it screams a desperate act of too little, too late. The Catholic Church is facing a crisis of faith, so the Pontiff has been trying to give the Vatican a boost and trying to modernize the Church by inviting younger devotees. He has conducted rare multi-country tours. He has blessed same-sex couples. He has tried to boost gender equality in church. He has talked about artificial intelligence and climate change. But wherever he goes, the shadow of sexual abuses follows him. Last year, it happened on a rare visit to the Asia-Pacific region. The Pope visited Timor-Leste, where previous child sex abuse scandals of the clergy raised questions. It happened again in Belgium when the King and Prime Minister blasted the Church's legacy of sex abuse. For decades, the world has been demanding action from the Church instead of hollow words. And finally, the Pope has realized that actions always speak louder than words. Too bad that he was practically forced to.
Have you heard of the 3 R's? Don't break into Natu yet. I'm not talking about the movie RRR. I'm referring to the 3 R's in education. This is a concept in schooling, and it forms the foundation of teaching. The 3 R's refer to reading, writing, and reckoning, basically calculation or arithmetic. So that's the 3 R's, reading, writing, reckoning. But in recent years, there has been a push for a 4th R, recess. This includes playtime for physical education. You see, researchers, educators, parents, they're all increasingly coming on the same page. They're all realizing that exercise is crucial for children. So they want to boost physical education. They want to raise its standard. They want to give it the same status as maths, English, or science. And slowly, governments are coming on board. Now, credit where it's due. China is a part of this club. Beijing wants to beef up physical education. They have unveiled a bunch of policies which look at the quality and quantity of PE in schools. There are 3 key aspects here. First, PE will become core to the curriculum, like Chinese or maths. It will not be a secondary subject. Second, the focus will shift to teachers. Their numbers will get a boost. And so will the respect that they are due. Yes, China being China is mandating respect too, but this time for good, it seems. They want physical education teachers to be treated the same as their colleagues teaching core subjects. This will ensure that they are compensated well and held to higher standards. Plus, it will encourage retired athletes and military veterans to pitch in. And third, apart from quality, Beijing is regulating quantity as well. They're mandating at least 2 hours of physical activity daily, 1 hour at school and another outside school. Of course, an obstacle course lies ahead. These policies could face hurdles during execution, like ensuring relevant infrastructure in schools, or regulating the hiring of teachers, or measuring the progress and making sure that some children don't fall behind. But these policies are also necessary. And this is one of those rare occasions where China is thinking in the right direction. But why now? Why is Beijing giving physical education the credit it is due? The answer lies in their economy. It is in bad shape. There is a slowdown. Factory activity has shrunk. People are spending lesser money, so they're opting for cheaper food or junk food. Over the next decade, obesity is expected to rise in the country, and this is bad news. Because according to the World Health Organization, more than 37% of their population is already overweight or obese. And this includes children. Back in 1990, about 1% of Chinese boys were obese. Today, that number stands at 15%. This is behind the US, but ahead of most other countries like the UK, Japan, and India. Or look at obesity among Chinese girls. In 1990, it was less than 1%. Today, it is about 8%. Obesity is a major public health issue in China, so Beijing wants children to exercise more and make movement a part of their lives right from school. But this is not just about China or about obesity for that matter. People say exercise is good for the body and mind. This is especially true for children. It increases muscle and bone strength, it boosts fitness, heart health, and promotes better sleep. Exercise also makes children fitter for learning. Study after study shows this. Children who are more physically active do better in school. They have better concentration, better focus, more self-control, lesser stress and anxiety. In fact, physically fit children have different brain structures altogether. It helps them do better at maths and reading. So the benefits are plenty, yet physical education is often seen as a hindrance to studies. It is viewed as a distraction. It is given stepchild treatment. Very few countries mandate it in schools. Sure, there are a lot of caveats to ensure exercise in schools, yet you need ample resources, like the right kind of gear or enough playgrounds. You need qualified specialist teachers. You need the right standards, better funding, and ways to battle the inherent bias against playtime. But the benefits of physical education far outweigh the efforts required to bring this radical shift. So my point is quite simple. Physical education is like the underdog of schooling, and it deserves to be valued because it is unfair to teach students to sit still when we don't help them move more.
शाम से इस जगह पर रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन हो रहा है। बुराड़ी में कल रात तकरीबन 7 बजे एक 4 मंजिला इमारत गिर गई और उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक राहत और बचाव का काम चल रहा है। इस वक्त सीधी तस्वीरें मैं आपको दिखाती हूँ। ये जो तस्वीरें आप देख रहे हैं, ये टॉप एंगल शॉट्स हम आपको दिखा रहे हैं न्यूज़ 18 इंडिया पर कि किस तरीके से ये पूरी बिल्डिंग जो है वो ढह गई। और आप फिलहाल देख सकते हैं कि तकरीबन 4 से 5 जेसीबी है जिनकी मदद से मलबे को हटाने का काम यहाँ पर किया जा रहा है। और साथ ही साथ आप देखेंगे दूसरी तरफ एनडीआरएफ के जो लोग हैं वो लोग हाथ से भी मलबे को हटाने हटाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। यहाँ से तकरीबन 13 लोगों को रेस्क्यू कर लिया गया है और जिसमें से बताया जा रहा है कि 2 लोगों की मौत भी हो गई है। और ऐसे में फिलहाल जो यहाँ पर काम चल रहा है वो मलबे को हटाकर क्या कोई और लोग नीचे दबे हो सकते हैं, उनकी खोजबीन को लेकर चल रहा है। और फिलहाल 13 लोगों का रेस्क्यू किया गया है, उसके बाद से कोई रेस्क्यू फिलहाल होता हुआ नजर नहीं आया है। लेकिन अब ये मलबा हटाने के बाद ये देखा जाएगा कि कोई इसके अंदर तो नहीं फंसा हुआ है। अब तक 2 लोगों की मौत की खबर यहाँ से आ रही है।
करोगे क्या ऊपर से? आ गए? हाँ?
2 लोगों की डेथ हो गई तो उसको अपडेटेड कर दूँ।
ऑफिशियली नहीं हुआ ना अभी।
और उन्होंने कुछ बोल ही पाए थे बिल्डिंग है तुरंत हम भागे
तो ये देखिए अभी चुनाव का माहौल है, विधायक संजीव
Do you know which month is the longest? Technically, 7 months have 31 days in them, yet January is said to be the longest. It often feels like the month is never ending, and it's caught the internet's attention. People are ranting online about how January is seemingly endless. Even Google has waded in. But don't worry, scientists have a logical answer for you. They have done studies and trials to understand this phenomenon. That's right, we may not have a cure for cancer, but our scientists have spent millions to tell us why a month feels too long. One reason is because it follows December. As you know, December is the holiday season, but January is all about work. Plus, a lot of people sign up for new things in this month, like gym or dance classes. As a result, they're more aware of time. Well, whatever the reason, at least the jokes are good. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Tens of thousands of Palestinians returned to devastated northern Gaza on foot. Holocaust survivors and world leaders light up candles in honor of Auschwitz victims. And in Cuba, a torch march honors the legacy of an independence hero. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1985, music legends from across the globe gathered to record the single We Are the World. It aimed to raise funds for famine relief in Africa. The song was written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. 45 renowned artists, including Stevie Wonder and Bruce Springsteen, were part of it. The record was a massive success, selling over 20 million copies and won multiple Grammy Awards. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwala. Top story, the political war continues over